Morning, Internet. We are live with episode 126 of Voices of Revival. I am excited for this morning's cast. We are joined by Anthony Rhodus. Anthony, I am honored to have you here on the call with us this morning. Very excited to connect with you and chat with you and hear a bit about what God is doing in your life and ministry. For those who may not be familiar with you, would you care to take a few moments and just kind of introduce yourself?
Yeah, man. Like I said, thanks for having me on. You know, every morning when I wake up, I honestly just can't believe what my life has turned into. The Vegas odds against me doing something like this or even being around speaking of Jesus is kind of mind blowing. About 12 years ago, God stepped in my life. I fell back into a bad pattern and man, he just changed it miraculously, dude. Everything just spun a big 360. I started chasing Jesus and eventually started running into people through recovery. We had a recovery program up at the church I went to. And that pastor just come up to me one day and he's like, son, you're doing some stuff. And I'm like, I ain't really doing nothing, just bringing people to church and just chasing Jesus, man, trying to figure this thing out. And he's like, son, no, he said, you're doing something. And I believe that's a lot of us. We're just walking through it. We don't really recognize what an impact we're doing. And I broke off and started going over to that recovery church, getting through recovery, started mentoring people and stuff like that. And Lord put me in a spot down there to go help out at a couple of pantry houses to help give out food. And I started running into people that was dealing with living on the streets and stuff. And my heart just got drawn to it, man. And yeah, basically that's it. And it just come on, just loving people is what it's all about. I don't really feel like I do much. I keep my eye on Jesus and I just love people, man. And God does all the work. I don't really feel like I do much of nothing, man.
And I
But
love that. I love that. You're talking about everything that you're doing, and in the mix of the discussion, I find it very humbling that you talk about these opportunities that God has put in front of you, but not once did you mention like the actual like I guess like branding of the ministry that you guys have. Like you guys run a ministry and it's called Wild Ones, right?
yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so that's the umbrella that all of this is kind of flowing under. Talk to me about like how that came about and like go a little bit in specifics on what exactly that is. I know you kind of already talked about it, but
Well, I honestly, didn't really consider myself a ministry at all. I mean, I was just doing God's work. Um, it came to a point where they said you need to name your ministry, and I was like, well, God had been speaking to me for about 4 years now, how he's calling up the wild ones. He's calling up the crazies that'll go back into the flaming arrows to get the ones that nobody wants. And there's a major relatability factor when it comes to being able to reach out to people on the streets. When you come from it and you can feel their pain genuinely and they know that and you show it with genuine love. Like I don't tell people what they're doing bad. I just tell them there's something better for them
yeah,
and I don't try to force Jesus on nobody. I just tell them to challenge Jesus. Other than that, I just try to help them build a relationship with Jesus, their own personal relationships with Jesus. That's what I'm saying. I don't Once you give them that, man, God takes control of it.
yeah, that's good. Um,
We uh we got a little church down here in Middletown. It's called the Gathering Church, and we open the doors 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 10 to 2. And we got open showers. We got a clothes pantry for people to trade up their clothes. Everybody that's doing any kind of struggle. It ain't just for people living on the streets. It's for anybody. And I got down there through the winter and started serving and helping and just loving on people. And they seen what an impact it was making that they wanted me to come and connect more. So they actually brought me down in a position over the winter while I was laid off. And like I said, man, the Lord was just moving all through it. people were checking into recovery, here and there, but it got going to where I told them, I said, I got to go back to work, but I want to continue to do more. I can't be here all the time like I am, but God wants me to do more. So they allowed me to open up a Saturday night service down there, which is kind of like a celebrate recovery,
Yeah.
except for I haven't took it official to celebrate recovery because there's so many rules and regulations that hides the glory of God. So I don't get no fundings. I ain't worried about none of that. I see the impact of what God's doing to people. As of a couple of weeks ago, before I took off to Alabama, we gotten 17 people into rehab in 30 days. And this ain't people facing jail or rehab, brother. This is people that's coming in to get some food because they hungry, been living on the streets for a while, and been coming down for a while. The same people that's checking in the rehabs has been coming up to the gathering for a year that I know of. And then like I said, that little church, we just let God have its way. It's basically just testimonies. People that's God's pulled them out of the dirt, and just anybody that's got a beautiful testimony that wants to come down, and God just does all the work. But we just step in it and he does all the work.
Wow.
But, yeah.
No funding.
Uh,
You guys have no
no,
funding.
no,
Um,
no. RGM Church, actually a few weeks ago, I was driving down the road and got a phone call and didn't even have the number of my contacts and didn't recognize Dustin's voice when I heard it. And he said, Tony, you still feeding people? And I said, yeah. He said, where's your location? I hit him location. He showed up with 15 boxes with 40 pounds of popcorn chicken, big old chicken legs and everything else in it. A lot of people donate clothes. I don't want people to go out and spend their money, but if people's got extra clothes that they're going to just throw off at a Goodwill or something, we take them down here. We'll put them in that pantry. We'll make sure somebody gets them.
how
But
often are you guys feeding people?
um, 4 times a week, they do it. We feed um, at noon, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and then I do a big full meal Saturday nights. The morning things. The gathering actually has churches that reaches out and they like sponsor it. They'll bring the food and they'll
Yeah.
get to stay in the kitchen and feed
Okay.
everybody.
That's
And
very cool. That's
that's
very
really
cool.
nice through the days. But my service is it's separated from that, and it's usually me, my mama, and I got Georgie. And like I said, we got the team. Everybody throws in and cooks something. I've actually sat here all night and cooked chicken. I cooked 90 chicken legs and I got popcorn chicken. We've been having roughly 60 to 100 people every Saturday
Wow.
night. And that's pretty good for a Saturday night. There's so
Yeah.
much other stuff to be doing.
Yeah. Um, Services like weekend services, Friday night services, Saturday night services. That's a difficult time slot. Difficult
Yeah.
time slot
Yeah,
for sure.
especially now football's going.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Wow, man. Like, wow. It is absolutely incredible. You're, all of this stuff you guys have going on, and your heart is, I don't feel like I'm doing anything.
I know I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm incapable of doing none of this stuff. He'll run me in a big old circle when I try and put me right back to where I started and show me that I had enough to begin with. He's done that enough times that I just give it to him. People be calling and say, what are we doing? We need plans. I'm like, no, we don't. We need to know what's cooking and we need to know who's speaking, and God's got the rest, y'all. Everybody puts too much into it. It's I've come to find out it's really simple, brother. You just keep your eye on God and you love on people. And when they feel that genuine love, man, you just set prayers out for people and God takes
Yeah.
care of it.
That's awesome, man. Let me ask you this. So, in the mix of everything you're doing, you've talked about, you kind of mentioned that, like, going in and getting the ones that people don't want. What has it been as you've been doing what you're doing and you're seeing the fruit that you're seeing? What has the process on kind of integrating people into the church at large? How has that been?
It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been great. I've a lot of people that started coming to my services has picked up Sunday services. I got people that has checked into rehabs that's coming out fighting for Jesus, mentoring, running groups, already joining choirs in the big churches and everything. Man, God's speaking to them, and that's what they tell me. They said, "Thank you for helping me build my relationship with Jesus." Not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Their own personal. You can sit here and listen to whatever I say. And if you start believing in that, you're just believing in my relationship with Jesus. You know, this
Yeah.
is a personal. He's got a personal thing for each and every one of us, and it's all different. And if we
Yeah.
follow each other, it's useless. You know, it takes all of us together with our gifts and what God gives us, and it makes a change.
I think
It makes a change.
oftentimes people, when they're in difficult positions, there's this kind of conceived ideal that, like, I'm not like, I don't know how best to word this, right? Like, I'm not like church material, you know? Like, I'm
Yep.
somehow less than, and like, I don't fit in this place, you know? And that can be like a barrier preventing some people from stepping forward. So like you've not seen that. You've not seen like people come forward and like the church reject them. Like you've seen the church be open and receptive to what God is doing.
Well, God has actually blessed me with putting me in churches like that. You
Yeah.
know, we have a it ain't easy. It really ain't easy, you know, and it's one thing to walk in, and I don't know if you know me very well, but I can't keep quiet. So I definitely I definitely get some looks sometime when you start speaking about God and you do it. But that's the narrow path, bro. It's the elder faith and the new fire that God's putting in the generation that together, because God put stuff in me and I'll be talking about it because I don't even know what I'm talking about. And it takes somebody that knows the book real good, you know, and understands what God's plan is and everything, you know. And when it joins together, it's a beautiful thing. Them little old people that come from them regular churches start hearing me talk about it just a week or a couple of days of my life and the weird stuff that God does every day, and they smile and they love it. The genuine love will come and God will break the rest. You know, but it ain't always easy walking in them churches. I'm not going to tell everybody it is because it's not.
Yeah.
The church I go to in Cobblestone right now, when I started there, they didn't ever have a recovery program. And as I went there, me and the pastor got way connected, and we started one up. I'm a co-leader at Cobblestone CR on Sunday nights at 6:30 in Lebanon also. And we feed each other. We feed out there too. There's a meal out there, and then the service at 7, meal at 6:30. And it's labeled as a CR. We have a testimony once a month, and then the other 3 weeks is lessons from the 12 steps. But that was the thing, man. Once we picked up all the regulations and you couldn't take pictures and there was all these different rules you couldn't do for everything being anonymous, I just kept telling them, I'm like, we that ain't we God can't be anonymous. Like
Yeah.
the CRs I went to down in Alabama, I mean, we couldn't put enough seats in them places, but we all got to show the glory of God. People would be looking and like, is that such and such? Oh yeah, they done went to the program. They done got their whole life switched up. God done did this, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about recovery is you can see full life transformations. You
Yeah.
know, they're usually at one of the lowest points of their life, and you can see God turn the whole thing around. Within a lot of Christians, I guess, you know, if you got so much, there's only certain things he's walking through. And if you don't even put it out there, see, I believe there's a Christian prestige to where nobody will even talk about that they're hurting, and they won't bring it to the altars, and they won't let God have it, and they won't let God's people love on them and pray for them because they think they got this something that they got to show. Well, through recovery, you can look at us and tell us, you can tell we're broken. We ain't trying to hide nothing, you know. But the altars stay full and people take prayer and God moves,
Yeah.
you know.
What is in the mix of everything you have seen God do? What would you say the most amazing thing you've ever seen God do is? Like if you sit back and you think about like what is like the thing I've seen God do that just sticks out to me above everything else. What is that?
Well, when he was building my faith and he was showing me little things and growing it, he actually he sent me on a mission trip to Belize. And I couldn't afford the trip when it first got sent out that the church was going. Throughout the year, I actually got laid off for work through the winter, and I was trying to find a job. And God told me, He said, "If you'll just trust me," and uh, and so I did, and I actually got stuff accomplished and stuff done that I couldn't do the whole time I was working full time in my whole life, you know. But I went up and asked about that trip, and I didn't have the money to go on it then. It was like $2,000. And they told me, they said, "Tony, you couldn't even make the trip now if you had the money because it's already been booked up for 6 months. There's planning and passports and all these regulations to go to Belize." And I won't tell the whole testament or nothing, but they called me up 3 days after I went and asked and paid for me a passport. A man checked out and donated me his whole trip. Well, God done flew me 10,000 miles to Belize. They messed up the reservations at the hotel or the hostel. So we had to go to another one, and it was right beside this little poor man's gym. It looked like a metal building, but it had a couple workout equipments in it. And ended up meeting that guy, and he was a had been in the military for 27 years and retired, and now he's a runner for the country of Belize. And he says he's always in the top five, and he's it's true. His name's Luis August, and if he was in America, they'd have him on a Wheaties box. But I got to spend the whole week there beside him. And like I said, I was going to the marketplace and passing out bananas and Powerades and just meeting people and loving on people. I love their culture. You know, there's people down there washing their clothes in the rivers, and you think it was sad until you just seen the kids out there playing beside them and the smiles on their faces. That everybody was just, it's just what they knew and they loved. But so we were leaving after 6 days, and we go to get on the airplane in Belize to fly home, and they canceled a flight to Dallas the day before, and we get in there and we're going to Dallas. So we get going through there, and I'm telling everybody in the airport how much I love their country and their culture and their love. But we get in there, and they'd shut down the flight the day before, and everybody's kind of in a disarray, trying to find their lanes because two flights taking off same place, kind of same time. Well, all of a sudden, they canceled both of them flights. Everybody goes nuts, you know, and I start walking around talking to people and telling them because I thought we was going to sleep on the benches. And I met a guy that got shut down the day before. They ended up putting us in a hotel. And we stayed up in this hotel. And the next day I went down to the Caribbean Sea. And as I was walking down to it, there was a gazebo sitting down there and just one little guy sitting there. And he had a little Bluetooth speaker and he's playing like Biggie Smalls and Nelly and stuff. So I walked up like, "I'm from America. I know that stuff." We got sitting there talking for a little while. He was telling me about where not to go for the crocodiles or the alligators, whatever they was out there. He was warning me about everything in Belize, and got to telling me he was in that military, and that same military as my other buddy that I'd met. And this is 4.5 hours away. I went 10,000 miles to San Iglesias, and then now we're 4 hours away in Belize City, about to get on the airplanes. And I told him, I said, "I got a buddy in that same military." And he's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, his name's Luis." And he looked at me funny. So I flipped my phone around and showed him a picture. Immediately, this guy breaks into tears. He said, "That man trained me in the army." He said, "That man taught me how to run." He stood up and busted his chest. Said, "That man taught me to breathe." He said, "I ain't know what happened to my friends since COVID, because when COVID hit, that place is everything they do is through tourism, you know, and everybody was selling everything, which Luis and his wife had separated, and he was selling everything in the gym. And that's the last thing this guy had knew of his brother is 4 years ago. He had split up with his wife and was selling everything, and he didn't know what happened to the man that trained him. And I got to say, "Well, let's just sit down and let me tell you about it." I've been spending the whole week with him, you know. And brother, and then, you know, I didn't get to tell all the story. When I was walking into the airport to leave, they had a big picture on the wall, and it was the other side of the airport I didn't see, and it was big hotels and the Caribbean Sea, and we'd been down in one of the poorest places I'd ever seen in my life. And I told God, I said, your faithful son, when he comes back, I'm putting my toes in that water. Like I said, he shut down an airplane, put me up in a swimming pool on top of a 9-story hotel in Belize City. Next day, let me walk down there and meet that guy, tell him about his friend. This dude's crying, rips the top off his Caribbean rum, pours all this out and tries to give me a shot. I'm like, sir, I don't drink anymore. And he just points up to God, like, dude, this is for God. Like, we're saluting. And so I took that little shot and dipped my toes in that water and got on the airplane and come home. Brother, I've seen God do so many amazing things, but that was to the most of the extreme extent. He took me 10,000 miles to meet a man, to go 4.5 hours later to meet a man just to heal his heart. Do you know what God would do for us if we call on him? If he had moved mountains like that just to heal a man's heart? It
It's
showed me
crazy.
that there wasn't no stopping him and that he would do anything in this world for us if our heart's right. I can't explain it, sir. I can't explain nothing he does. I quit trying. I like the fact that I can't. I know it's all him.
Yeah. I am reminded that, listening to you kind of share that, I'm reminded that the world is not just random chaos. There's a divine order to it. Things that we see might not make sense to us. We might not understand why God has certain things in certain places, but He has a divine order to all things. And things have a way of playing out in the moment we don't understand. But a couple years down the road, when we look back on everything that God is doing, you just have a way of saying, okay, God, I understand. I see what you were doing there. And I love how you talked about how you've stopped trying to make sense of everything.
For sure.
It's really a waste. It's really a waste to try and make sense of what God is doing. I don't think, like, we say that and it's an easy thing to be like, yeah, that's true, that's right. But the more you really look at things, He's so far beyond us. Like, something that blows my mind kind of on this thought, right? Think about the Genesis creation story. So, like, one of the first things God does is He says, let there be light, right? So in the beginning, in the creation story, God's like, let there be light, and there's light. But it's not until several days later when we read that He creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. So where'd the light come from? What was the light? How do you explain that? How do you
Right.
explain God saying, let there be light, and there's light, but yet there's no sun, moon, and stars? It's
Wow.
it's just beyond us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a freeing thought as well. We don't need an explanation.
No,
Just walk by
no,
faith and trust that we serve a good God, a good Father, who is going to line all things up for our good.
that's it. Amen.
Sir.
Yeah.
You know,
He definitely didn't bring us this far to let us go back.
yeah,
But as far as it goes, man, yeah, I can look back to where I handed out that first food pantry box to a guy that lived on the streets. You know what I mean? And we connected. For you know that we was sitting out there talking, praying, chilling. You know what I mean? Taking pictures and just man, it's all about humanizing people again. We have built so many walls, and I know we've hurt so many people through addiction. We've lied, we manipulated, and what they don't understand with this part with people being homeless and stuff is it's not personal anymore. They made so many wrong choices that it's got them where they are, but they're not in a position for nothing to be personal. And we all look down and we say, they need to just get a job. And that's the reason right now, my mission right now is to get a kind of like a sober living, but it's going to be like a gap house. It's if a person that lives on the street and fights to find their food every day takes a regular job that takes them 2 weeks to get paid, They're going to work, so they can't find that way to get fed right there, anyways. So they're probably borrowing a little bit of money to make it through if they got somebody that can trust them. By the time they do get a, yeah, you love that song. They'd and by the time they do get paid, they owe that money out. And then eventually, if they can save up enough to get into that whole hotel rat race wheel, they just get stuck in it and they never get to get out of there. I spoke to a man from Egypt that come down to the gathering, and when his wife passed away, he just give up, and he didn't try to get no more houses or no more cars. He just walks where he goes, and he just lives his life like that on the streets. And he come down there and he was telling us, y'all the hands and feet of God and that. And I told him, thank you for all that. But he was telling me about like the little gathering. He said over in Europe, they have little places like that, like we do Dollar Generals over here. He said that they're on every corner, it seems like, and they got little bunk beds in the back. So if somebody's got to work on this side of the city, because a lot of people's walking, they're never homeless. There's these little places everywhere to wherever you got to be, you got a place to lay your head. And they can do that, and people can do that until they find them enough money to get to where they got them a place. Now, if they continue to stay on drugs and everything, we know that they're not going to be able to do that because they're going to buy drugs. But you'd be surprised how many people once out, they just don't know how.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, if you don't know how to show them Jesus, and I ain't talking about tell them Jesus, you got to have the identity. The joy of the Lord, it's my strength, but it's also my weapon. I take that in the street and I just show the joy of the Lord. And I tell them I love them, and I tell them I don't like that they have to go through this, and that there's something better if they'll just trust and call out to God. You know, and that's what I give them. I help them with anything, but I always just challenge people. Just challenge God. Just challenge him. He'll show you something. He might not come and switch your whole
Yeah.
life around, but he'll show you something enough to know that it was him. And
You've talked about like launching like recovery ministries at like different churches, at different churches. What would you say to a church that doesn't have any ministry in this vein, a church that doesn't have any like recovery ministry, but it's something that like the leadership knows that God is calling them to? Like, how do they get started? What do they do?
just open the doors, reach out to another one. You know what I mean? Get connected. The way I did it is, like I said, to call in the people to do testimonies. I call people from other ministries. I have leaders come down or people from inside the group. I got Full Circle that comes down. I got Seacrest that comes down. I got Whole Truth Ministries that comes down. Connected to RGM, you bring them in, and it don't matter if they just come for that night and you love on them and they leave. You're meeting people and you're growing the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
You got to be able to have. You got to be able. It's got to stretch bigger than just where you're at. And it's definitely. It just starts inside the walls, y'all. It's got to go to the streets.
How long have you
Man,
guys been doing the Saturday night gathering you're doing that you talked about? How long has that been a thing?
I think it was April I started it.
You started it
It was
in April, and you said that you guys got 17 people to volunteer for rehab. When what how far is that? 17 from April or like 17 more recent?
No, 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 not at all. Um, Not at all. From like I said, about 3 weeks ago, if you'd went back 30 days, it was 17 people within
17
them.
17 people in 30 days.
Yeah, well, there was 9 of them that come up out of the gathering, and the rest of them we got right off the streets.
So if we rewind to April, how many
Yeah.
people do you think that you guys have helped get like plugged into rehab and also kind of like help people get their feet right? Like how many people do you think have been affected since April?
Well, as far as affected, man, it's hard to even say. It really is. It's been absolutely amazing. I've literally had a Church of God. My mama started going to a Church of God out in Trenton, and the pastor of that church come down and did a service and fell in love. I looked back and he had his video camera out, And he said, I'm taking this back and showing my church this is how we're supposed to be worshiping right here. He said, this is church. But it ain't, like I said, it ain't just impacted the people off the street. It's impacted everybody
Yeah.
that's gotten involved. Like to all my leaders and everybody, man, the ministry is just changing their lives, and God's just, man, I can't even explain it. I wished I could. There's been many getting the rehabs. The rehab set off probably about 2.5 months ago, and it just started going like a domino effect. We got a couple in, and people started seeing that what it was doing within them. Last year we had a thing called the Shalom, and I think we're going to start it back up. And it started at the beginning of December and lasted till March. And we had a church gym facility over here, and different churches would sponsor it for a week. They come in and cover the accountability, and they cover the meals, and we'd keep people up off the streets. We had it maxed out all year long at 48 people in the facility, and we got way more than that on the streets. But man, I'm talking about we've got people. I've got people. Well, I'm gonna say we, and we have got people to back home to Arkansas to their families. We got a lady that was on the streets for over a year and hadn't seen her kids in Wisconsin. Back home to her kids. They send pictures of everything. The people went to Arkansas. They're trying to get back up here so they can tell their testimony of what God's did since they had left. We've got multiple people up into the up into affordable living spots, and man, every aspect of it, just growth and everywhere, just fruit everywhere. If you don't see the fruit, you're just doing it for the show, and it's definitely just fruit coming out. And like I said, even the ones that come in thought that they were going to give receives.
What is right now, as you guys are doing everything you're doing, what is the biggest complication? Like, what is the biggest hurdle, the biggest struggle in the mix of all of the work right now for you guys?
Kind of like the religion, kind of like the what you was talking about, the churches.
Yeah.
Our church is owned by another church, and I had my very first service I opened up. JD Vance's mama had hooked up with me and had just left the White House and got her a 10-year um, chip. They did a whole celebration in the White House for Beverly, and she come right back from there and did my service, my first one. And she got up there and she said a couple of little dirty words, the little dirty words that's in the in the dictionary. She used the female dog word once, and she was excited telling her testimony. And it got back to the church, that they was that it was supposed to be, and we did it outside. Even, I mean, I understand, and people slip. This is recovery. And man, they about shut me down. Well, they actually did for a minute. Everybody got to talking about it and seen it as something bad, and it wasn't with the vision of the church. So I started doing it at the parks, brother. I started going over to Smith Park and doing the same thing I did right there. And with there's a couple spots over there where people stay that don't make it down to the gathering, and
Yeah.
man, we really got to reach out to a whole bunch. The gathering, man, the only people that even knew about that place was people either in jail or living in the woods. For I don't for years, I guess that church has been open for years, and I lived in Middletown and never heard of it. But like I said, I started going down there and started making videos, and it's come a long way. But it's the religion part, the spiritual warfare and the religion. Everything else, man, we just, like I said, we just cooking a little food and loving on people.
Yeah.
It ain't hard.
You know, um, uh, there's, from what I understand, a crew from the church I go to come out, and they're a part of the Saturday night thing with you guys. Um,
Awesome.
so like the church I attend, we have seen a lot of people come through within the last year and surrender their life to God, and you talked in a good portion, or a portion of them are in the mix of recovery, And I will never forget. I love this. I love this. A guy had come through, and he had gotten saved. Right, he had gotten saved, given his life to God, and then he would like do these like Facebook lives, right? And he's doing this Facebook live one day, right? And he's like talking to people and like inviting them to come out to church. And then in the mix of him inviting them to come out to the church, he's like, "Yeah, man, let me just tell you, it is." And he drops like some like curse words, using him as descriptions on how awesome the church was. And like as he's doing it, like I'm just like sitting here, like kind of like chuckling and laughing at it, but at the same time, like I know that like, man, if certain people saw this, this probably wouldn't
Yeah.
be good. But like it
Yeah.
was just overflow of his heart, you know, like
Yeah.
it was.
A lot of the words are they ain't really what you consider cuss words, anyways. They are just I don't know. As far as the world sees it, they're not correct to be saying. You don't want your kids to say it. You
Yeah,
know, when I first started going to church, I'd get to talk to my pastor, and I'd do exactly what you just said, and it would make him giggle that I was catching myself, and like I was wanting to work on myself, and he understood that there's a growth and a process. Stuff we've been saying, what I mean, for years and years and years, just to break it. But I also heard him sit here and say one time, and he said, I've never heard this word used as a compliment. It's all been, every time it's been used, is to curse somebody. To call somebody stupid is just as bad to call them anything else. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's if you're cursing them, it's different. But he used the MF thing, and he's like, I've never heard nobody say MF and be talking about something good. And in my heart, I'm like, no, dude, you're wrong. I used to say this is my dude and be saying that, and I meant it with the highest of compliments. So it's really, but as far as politically incorrect, I don't want my grandbabies out running to say it. But the
yeah.
GD word, my granny, I had the most Jesus little jumping granny. She didn't never drove a car, wouldn't eat meat. She told me the only thing she ever had to repent for was loving Elvis Presley. And she was just the sweetest little thing. And man, she would stick soap down your mouth for that GD word if anybody said it. I've always stayed away from it. I actually, something inside of me, when I hear somebody else say it, I actually ask God to forgive them, like, forgive them, Lord. They don't know what they're doing. Just quietly try to do it. But man, I really think we put too much on anything that we can make a problem
Yeah.
as far as this goes. I had a person get onto my video yesterday, and he called me a fool and something else because I was wearing that bandana, and I was just making a video talking about come out to the church and see Jesus. But something about Jesus wouldn't wear stuff like that, something else, you're a fool, this and that. And I don't let none of that affect me. And
I
I
would,
reckon when
I
Jesus
would,
come back,
knowing nothing about whoever said that to you, I would probably venture to say they're probably someone sitting on a pew somewhere is not actually doing anything for God, you know? And like you're out there killing it. And like you're out there killing it. And in the mix of it, like you're telling me all of this amazing stuff that God is doing, but in the same breath, you're like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything. I wanna like smack you, man. Like I want to smack you and be like, you
I'm
just need
cooking
to,
chicken, man.
you just need to like shut up, man. Like what God is doing in your life, it is absolutely ridiculous. Like I'm looking at what you got going on, and then I'm looking at like what I'm doing. I'm like, God, like, do you want me to burn this all to the ground and like restart? Because like the fruit that you're talking about is foreign to me, right? I look at like what God has done over my life, like over this past year, and like I can think of maybe two or three people that I can be like, you see this person here, they have been affected and their life has been transformed, and my obedience to God had a small part in it. Like I can count a couple people. But you're over here like 17 people have gone to rehab in 30 days. I'm like, God, I want that. Like, I will burn all of this to the ground and we'll restart. You know?
Well, you keep doing what you're doing, and you just come join up with us down here. There's a spot for you right here.
Listen,
Yeah,
listen.
I mean,
listening to you talk about everything, I am definitely going to try and like get together a team and like we're going to do dinner one Saturday night for you guys. So like
I would love that. Would love that. Come get connected, brother. I love y'all. We all been kind of circling around each other for a minute.
yeah. Yeah, I
You know,
remember when we crossed paths down at the hub some months ago.
yeah, down at the Freedom Hub. Yeah, man. Yeah, I was excited. I thought you were awesome, man.
Yeah. That's
It's
awesome,
the way
man.
he does it. Wraps it around. Yeah, I came out to that thing y'all did out there at the River Bridge too, or whatever
Yeah,
that
the
was out there.
riverfront.
Yeah, I had the grandbabies and my daughter coming to pick the one up and the other one wanted to go. And I had all the car seats parked way down the road. So by the time I got the vehicles and switched up the car seats, the parking was done. Y'all had that place lit. You couldn't even find a place to park.
Yeah.
Y'all doing stuff, man. Don't sit back. We don't judge it like that,
Yeah.
man. We're all doing it. It's all one body. It's
Yes,
all one
sir.
body, man.
We've got the I've not put out like any like official announcements on it, but we've got dates for the riverfront for next year. So
Awesome.
I'll get those to you and we'll get you plugged in with that
Yes,
and get
sir.
you guys
Yes, sir.
plugged up into that. Um Everything you have going on right now, like what are you most excited about?
Man, just every day. There's
Yeah.
no telling what happens every day, This morning I was sitting here waiting to get this Zoom stuff right, and I'm watching my little 3-year-old grandbaby with his hands in the air, watching worship on YouTube and spilling yogurt all the way down my entertainment center. And I just teared up, man. And like knowing I was gonna talk to you and like at the end of the month, I'm speaking at a big festival down in Alabama, and I just did Freedom Fest up in Dayton, and just and what God's doing, I just don't even know. I just don't even know. I'm so humbled by it, man. I don't try to grab a hold of the stuff. I don't put no titles down at my place. It's like I'm amazed by God, and I love Him, and I just try to get closer to Him every day.
Yeah.
And that's all I do is chase Him and love everybody He puts around me, man. He does the rest. I really don't do nothing.
Yeah. What would you let me ask you this. Um what would you say to somebody who is kind of like walking the same path that you're walking? Because like I know a couple other guys that are kind of like walking a similar path to you. And like I see their struggle, and like you talk about how you don't feel like you do anything for God. Like some of these guys I know, they have that same mentality. And for them, like it's a major hurdle, Like how do you get past that and just plow forward and build with no restraint? Like fully
Hey,
surrendered. Like what would you
my
say to
thing.
someone? Yeah.
You just gotta hold on to your faith, man. Pray harder and hold on to your faith. I know He's got the victory coming. As long as I keep my eyes on Him, it ain't always easy, but like I said, it's Him.
Yeah.
Uh, you're gonna end up in the same place as long as you keep your eyes on Him and you go through all them works. And like I said, He'll run me. When this first started, I was running circles. I mean, trying to get this, trying to make sure this was right, trying to make sure that's right, try to line it up. And and man, God will put the right people in your path to make lanes, and He'll put the right people in your path that your heart will connect and your souls will connect. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all Him. It's all Him. I wish I had better answers, but just have faith that if you're doing God's work, man, and you're doing it correctly, you got if your motives are right, your heart's right. Just keep doing what you're doing. The hurdles they're doing is just spiritual warfare. I spoke of that. See, I asked God, like I connected to stay free, and after I got up here seeing stuff, and I just been like, God, if everybody's been doing this for so long, man, like if this is what's been happening like for thousands of years, just how's this world so messed up? Like how do we actually get this far? And He said it's the spiritual warfare that people get to the heavy waves to where it's constant. I'm talking about it stays constant. You got to stay in constant prayer. And
Yeah.
once you go through warfare for 24 hours a day, you understand what they say when they mean pray about everything. So I'm about to open the door like, oh, Lord be with me,
Yeah.
not quite to that extent, but you know what I mean? Every obstacle, man. Prayers are our first weapon, not our last choice. And bro, I just believe in what he's gonna do for me. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, and I don't even want to know. You know, I just want to walk in it.
That's awesome. Um, you you kind of listening to that response, absolutely amazing response, by the way. But I two things really stood out to me. One, the spiritual warfare, and two, no compromise. Listening to like everything we've talked about here on this call, like I see both of those threads interwoven in everything, right? And like the no compromise, like you talked about like the programs that you guys have launched, like you've done it without the covering of like CR, you know. And why'd you do that? Because you felt like you'd be compromising on the things that you knew God was calling you to, you know. And I think probably the thing that would make sense would be to like compromise and to do it under that umbrella so that resources are pumped into it, right? But like you've not compromised and you've continued to do things the way that God has said do things, and He's provided every step of the way. Um, I was at this like church campground recently, and they have this like sanctuary on these grounds, and in the sanctuary, there's quotes painted on the wall. And there was this one quote that I saw that was painted on the wall that just absolutely wrecked me. And it said, God's work done God's way will always have God's supply.
Yeah, that's good. That is
God's
good.
work, God's way, God's supply. No compromise. He will provide.
And one thing I've noticed that I've had to keep track of is your leaders in your ministry too. You got to make sure their hearts are in the right place. Any kind of ugly will compromise the whole situation.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of teams they built and all that, but when stuff starts happening, like I've had a little mishap of when this thing started taking off and everybody started seeing it and everybody started talking about it and everybody started enjoying it. I started seeing the little uglies come through. I seen the little envies come through. I seen people trying to reach out for titles. You know what I mean? Just like, and I had to make sure everybody was on the same flow as I was. This is all about these people. This has
Yeah.
nothing to do with this service or none of this. This has to do with these people we trying to get to know Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I'm blessed with a team though. God has put people I didn't even know most of my team last year.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of them on my team we never liked each other growing up.
That's awesome. God is good. Um, God is good. As we prepare to kind of bring the call to an end this morning, would you care to take a moment and speak to people that may be watching that find themselves kind of on the outside of God? You know, like they're not walking in relationship with God. They're on the outside of the house, looking in through the window, dealing with all of their struggles. Like, what would you say to that person?
Well, like I said, I always challenge people to challenge God. I just let them know that God does love them. He's real, but I want them to discover that for themselves. That if they'll call on Him, He'll show them something, and that I want them to know they're never too far away from God's love. Even people that's been to church their whole lives. Hold on one second, homie. I'm almost done. People that go to church their whole life get condemned from the Bible themselves, from like the abomination against the Lord and stuff like that through divorce. And people get thinking that God's talking about them. He's talking about the act. So I speak a lot about the government of God, the original ordinance and how it got disarrayed and how He tried to line it back up in with the laws. But it all comes back down to the man named Jesus took all that stuff on His shoulders so we wouldn't have to do it. And that if, man, God loves them. And it's
Yeah.
really, you don't have to go much further than if they'll challenge God, He'll show up. And if He don't, come holler at me and let me know, I guess. But He always shows up, Brandon.
Yeah.
He always
Always.
does. But man, it's just really people like that needs to have somebody that will sit down and give them a little bit of their genuine time and their heart, you know, let them talk, find what it is that's blocking what it takes to understand that God does love you. Because, bro, it's just when you come from where I come from and you've been through so much, I used to think if there was a God, he had to play some kind of cruel joke on me. You know, and then when he started using me, I thought he was at the bottom of the barrel. Like, are you serious? You want to use me? And like you ain't got nobody else. But he's raising us up for that reason. Got to put the right ones in their life, and I just tell them God wants something better. There's a beautiful life waiting for them, and if they'll challenge God, he'll meet their call.
Amen. Amen. Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and being on this call with us this morning. Those of you who hung out with us live, thank you for being here. Those watching via replay, thank you. Until next time, peace.